loafers about town would point him in my direction. What had my curiosity, though, was the question of what Mr. Earlywine might want me to do. Once when I was growing up on the farm, a fellow named Mr. Benson, who lived in a big house in town, needed a boy to do some work. It seemed like a good opportunity, not only to earn a little money of my own, but also to get away from home for a while. So I rode into town, hoping he didn't want me to pluck chickens. I don't like the smell of chicken feathers in hot water. It turned out he wanted me to wash his dog, which is a big St. Bernard, old and drooling with matted hair. It was the first job I was offered and the first one I turned down, and ever since then it served as a sort of a model, reminding me that I don't have to take every job that comes my way. Of course, there have been some jobs I took and would have been better off without, and that was another thing I was trying to stay away from. I found Mr. Earlywine's place, where the lean messenger had told me to look, on a back street, the house facing west, with empty lots all around it. It was a common-looking building, wide and low, with a stucco exterior. It had no porch or shade trees on the west side, and the tan coloring of the stucco had a baked look in the summer sun. As my horse's hoofs sounded on the hard, dry ground of the front yard, a bulky man appeared at the left side of the house. "Are you Jimmy Clevis?" he asked. "I sure am." I swung down from my horse. "Well, I'm Milton Earlywine. Why don't you come around back where we can sit in the shade?" He held out his hand, and I shook it. Before I got a good look at him, he turned and led me around the house. The backyard was no more fixed up than the front, though it had a hen house with no chickens and a low coal or woodshed with weeds all around it. At least there wasn't a big slobbering dog on the end of a chain, although it wouldn't have been out of place. My general impression was that the house and yard had gone untended for a while, and that Mr. Earlywine hadn't lived there very long. I tied my horse to a post that stood alone in the full sun, and then I went to sit in the shade of the house, where Mr. Earlywine had two cane-back chairs set on the dry ground. I didn't see a table or glasses or anything else promising, but I took off my hat all the same as I sat down. I got a better look at him now. I placed him somewhere in middle age, around 50 or so. His face and body had filled out, and he didn't look as if he had done much physical labor. He wasn't neat like a merchant on Main Street, either. He had the casual upkeep of a man who shaved every 2 or 3 days, bathed once a week, and changed his clothes when they got dirty. The clothes he wore were loose-fitting and common, not smudged or frayed from work. For his age, he had a good head of hair, parted on the left and combed back on top, gray like the stubble of his beard. Tiny broken veins showed on his upper cheeks and across his nose, and a second chin was holding up the first one, which didn't look as if it had been all that firm to begin with. Leaning back in his chair and tipping to his left, he took a cigar from his waistcoat pocket. He bit off one end and spit it away, took his time to light the other end, and then turned his gaze on me. He had steady brown eyes, and he seemed to pride himself in giving a shrewd look. "They tell me you're a good hand, Clevis." "I suppose it depends on what kind of work. I've done different kinds." "So have I." He held his cigar out to get a sideways view of it, then looked back at me. "I was in the cooperage business for several years, in the ice business for a few, and more lately was in the line of supplying dry goods to mining camps." "Oh, blankets and clothing and candles and such?" He sniffed. "Something like that. But I sold that business just like the other two, and I'm thinking about what I want to go into next." "I see." Actually, I didn't. If he was out of a line of work, it was hard for me to imagine what he wanted me to do. "There's always another opportunity just waiting to be found." "I'm sure. But that's not what we sat down to talk about." "Well, that's all right, too. What I want is for you to do a piece of work for me, unrelated to any of my past or future business enterprises." "I see. You mean a specific job, not just day-in, day-out delivery of ice or candles?" "That's right."